Okay, so fucked up on this one. And what you're watching is footage which was recorded at, I think, it won't sound high, but it felt high, 900 feet above sea level. It was very windy, it was very cold, much colder than it looks, and I took this back home to edit it up, and you can't hear anything. The audio is completely done. So look at this dingus here, up in the wind, and here I'm trying to talk about All-Star Superman and nocturnal animals. So I'll try and go along with them and make a approximation of what he was saying. So there I am, look at that stupid face. Talking about All-Star Superman. So All-Star Superman, written by Grant Morrison, drawn by Frank Whiteley, and coloured and inked by Jamie Grant. It was first published out in, let's just check, (2006 to 2008). So that's the original run, and the trade was collected in 2011. It's simply put, the greatest Superman story ever told. The Dream Team have just taken Superman back to his roots of being a symbol of hope and just absolute heroics. And this is where Superman works much better. The current trend for DC has always been to lean into the vertical line, which was to make them a little bit more darker and a little more grey. And there's always place for that in any literature, any genre, and comics really has a good market for it since Alan Moore, Gaiman, and Morrison, as well as a few others. There's always been a history of people trying to make them a little more adult, including like maybe most notoriously Frank Miller. And Superman has had his fair share of these dark books where he is portrayed as a god on Earth and having to deal with the problems that gives him. And look, there's no problem with doing that, but they do go into, ironically, immature terms. They make these caped heroic figures into these tortured souls, but they're still wearing the spandex, they're still wearing these colourful outfits, they're still fighting Stiltman. And basically there's only a few characters that can really get away with that, mainly being Batman. And also Superman takes it back to the more light-hearted roots where comics were aimed, and they this is just like a fact for you. Comics were originally just aimed as trash, and the market for them was 14-year-old boys, basically. And since then, we've got a lot more sophisticated, we've realised the medium has a lot more to offer, and now everyone can enjoy them, and many do. Many girls love comic books. I used to date one who was a massive fan of the entire Crow line, not just the famous first one by James O'Barr. And that's great, but honestly, Superman belongs light-hearted, he belongs heroic. We don't need the DC cinematic versions of these characters, which are frankly ridiculous. So All-Star Superman is basically about how Superman saves Dr. Leo Quinton when he's on the sun. His cells become super saturated, and we find out this is a plot by Lex Luthor. He's finally figured out a way to kill Superman. So Superman realizes he's dying, so he does everything he can to try and just make the world a little bit better, and to just spend his last months helping people and helping himself. And all through the book we've got these little mini adventures, all of which are brilliant, all of which are incredibly beautiful, I would say. And they all work as a whole. There's an overarching story in it, but the little snippets really just show how amazing this character can be. And I think I'm skipping ahead from what this asshole is saying, but there's a beautiful passage where Superman saves this young girl, and it always gets to me. I'm not much of an emotional reader, but there are a few passages and lines which always work on me, and one of them is in All-Star Superman. It's so good, because to her and to us, he's the symbol of what you can be. You can always do your best, you can always help others, and do really really should. And I love that about Superman. People rag on him for being overpowered, but he's not. He's perfectly powered. In fact, one of the quotes on the back by Time, which is a rag, but it describes it really well, that Morrison gets what's fun about Superman. He's ridiculously powerful, and therefore he just sees and does and has lots of incredibly cool, totally bizarre stuff. And yes, this is wonderful. He's in pretty much every single story. He's the main, except for one about Jimmy Olsen. He's the focus. They make him this Renaissance hero. He's who you would strive to want to be, and it's great. All the characters in this get fleshed out though. Even though Superman is the main, the only other character that gets as much time as Lex Luthor, who again is portrayed as like a selfish, almost cartoonish villain in his evil. He's a threat, but he's not a threat because he's dangerous. He's a threat because he's ignorant. He's so single-minded that he's correct, that he doesn't even think for a moment that he could be wrong. Lois Lane's great in this. She's really feisty, which is a horrible word to use, but it's true. She's great. She doesn't stand up for anything that Superman throws at her, but she does love him, and he loves her. Jimmy Olsen's wonderful in it as well. He's definitely his pal. I hate that line, but you can understand why Superman would want to hang out with Jimmy Olsen in this. You get some other characters which I'm not that familiar with, because as much as I'm familiar with comics, having did a whole fucking thesis on them, I don't read the monthlies. I usually pick up trades now and then. And this one is a brilliant character. He's a twist on the Bizarro version of Superman called Z-Barrow, and it's the idea that in 3 in every billion Bizarros, there are ones that are basically normal. And he's great. He's got like a real pathos to him. So yeah, it's beautiful. You should definitely try and pick up All-Star Superman. Right. At this point, he's still talking. He's still going. Wow, look at him. And I'm talking about Nocturnal Animals here. So Nocturnal Animals, written originally in the wonderful New Jersey title of Tony and Susan, was written in 1983 by English professor Austin Wright, who by all accounts was an incredible teacher, and re-released in 2011 under the title Nocturnal Animals. And this was a little bit of a letdown. So the framing of it is kind of interesting. It's about Susan Morrow, who receives a manuscript from her ex-husband, who has written this book called Nocturnal Animals, and it's about a man losing his family to this horrible crime and how he moves on from it. And Susan's cool. She's a great character. Her whole, because she's the only one really in the book that you get the inner workings of her mind. You never hear about what Edward, her ex-husband, is thinking, and she's just full of these like doubts, which are really cool. She doubts both of her marriages. She worries about her kids. She worries about how they're growing up. She's worrying about how she is. Like, she's very concerned about whether she's okay, and she's also worried about if this book means something a little more than it could. And these are great, but these are snippets. They're so small. If you collected all the Susan snippets of this book, you'd make a very, very short novella, which I don't mind, because I'll read anything. I'm actually working through an old military gunner manual over how to clean and repair a gun that I found. Not a gun that I have found, but the manual I found. So I will read anything, and I would have read this as a short novella, but it's not. The focus is the novel within the novel, and it's just not very interesting. The characters are bland, and it could be a take on the writing style, but it's also possible that just maybe he didn't write a very compelling book. Like, if that's Edward's character, that's very clever, but it could be that just Professor Wright didn't write a very entertaining book. But he did, however, predict the future. So in 1993, the mid-market thriller genre didn't exist. The whole pick up a book for your train, Girl in the Train, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, where the characters are sparse and that gives them this idea of deepness, didn't exist. So Nocturnal Animals was really one of the first mid-market thriller books, And if Austin Wright had written this thing as an experimental novel, it's genius. But I really don't think he did, which is a shame, because I've read about his history, which is far more interesting than the book. And he seemed like an incredible teacher. He had a real interest in the study of the language, and I would definitely pick up his other books, because this one, even though it wasn't great, it had all the makings of being great. I think it just, over time, it's been transformed into something else. Because honestly, you can rag on your 50 Shades all you want, you can rag on your Terry Brooks, but the real problem with books and literature right now is the mid-market thriller. They are too easily packaged, and they're not great, but they do so much, and that just lets the market continue to want more. So I think here I was doing some weird faux go outside and enjoy yourself thing. Obviously you stay inside, but if you've got a garden, enjoy your garden. If you can go on a walk, try and go on a walk. Just try and be safe, and read better books. Probably going to try and do a wrap up at some point. I just spaced and cancelled and Girl trying to do it perfect here. So check out my Goodreads, check out my hub pages, and have a good day, and enjoy this scenery and enjoy this dumbass.